The stagecoach appeared on the horizon just as the last light of the autumn sun settled across the Montana plains. Samuel Carter stood beside the corral fence, hat pulled low, hands rough from years of ranch work. He had waited months for this day, though waiting was something lonely men learned too well. The ranch sat miles from the nearest town, surrounded by endless grass, distant hills, and the restless wind of the frontier. Samuel had built everything with his own hands after his father passed away. The house was sturdy, the barn dependable, but neither could silence the loneliness that followed him every night. 2 winters earlier, sickness had taken his mother. Before that, a harsh storm had claimed his younger brother. The ranch survived every hardship, yet Samuel often wondered whether a man could survive solitude for so long. The silence inside the house felt heavier than the hardest day of labor. When a neighbor suggested a mail-order bride, Samuel dismissed the idea immediately. Love was not something he expected to find through letters. But after another long winter spent speaking only to horses and cattle, he finally answered an advertisement from a woman seeking a new beginning. Her name was Eleanor Whitmore. Their letters traveled back and forth for months. She wrote about losing her family and dreaming of building a peaceful life in the West. Samuel wrote honestly about the ranch, the hardships, and the simple hope of having someone beside him. He never promised riches or romance. He promised only honesty, hard work, and loyalty. Eleanor responded with kindness in every letter. Slowly, Samuel began imagining laughter inside the empty house and another voice joining him at the supper table each evening after sunset. A small photograph arrived with her final letter. Samuel kept it folded carefully inside his coat pocket. He looked at it more often than he cared to admit. It showed a gentle young woman with calm eyes and a hopeful smile that somehow made loneliness easier to bear. Now the day had finally arrived. Samuel checked the photograph once more while waiting near the road. His stomach tightened with nervousness. He had faced blizzards, broken horses, and cattle thieves without fear, yet meeting one woman made his hands feel strangely unsteady. The stagecoach rolled closer in a cloud of dust. The horses slowed as they reached the ranch entrance. Samuel straightened his posture and removed his hat. He suddenly felt foolish for caring so much, but there was no turning back now. His future stood only moments away. The driver climbed down first, muttering about rough roads and early snow. Then the passenger door opened. A young woman carefully stepped onto the ground carrying a worn travel bag. Samuel immediately felt confusion settle heavily in his chest. She was not the woman from the photograph. The difference was impossible to miss. Her hair was darker, her face unfamiliar, and surprise filled her eyes just as strongly as it filled his. Samuel reached into his pocket again, staring briefly at Eleanor's picture before looking back at the stranger. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind moved between them, carrying dust across the empty yard. The driver handed the woman another bag and quickly returned to his seat. Out on the frontier, schedules mattered more than unanswered questions. The young woman swallowed nervously and clutched her bag tighter. "My name is Clara Bennett," she said quietly. "I believe there has been a terrible mistake." Fear trembled in her voice, as though she already expected anger, disappointment, or immediate rejection. Samuel looked into her frightened eyes and realized she was every bit as lost as he was. Whatever had happened, she had traveled hundreds of miles alone to a place she did not know. He slowly placed the photograph back into his pocket. Clara lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I think I'm the wrong bride." She waited for his response like someone standing before a judge. Instead, Samuel offered a calm smile, tipped his hat gently, and said, "Well, Miss Bennett, you're here now. Let's get you inside before the cold finds us." Clara stood frozen for a moment, almost certain she had misunderstood him. She had prepared herself for harsh words, embarrassment, or being sent back on the next stagecoach. Instead, the rancher simply picked up her heavier suitcase and walked toward the house as though welcoming unexpected guests was perfectly ordinary. She hurried after him, her boots sinking into the soft dirt with every nervous step. The ranch spread across rolling fields that seemed to stretch forever beneath the fading sky. Horses grazed peacefully near the fence, while smoke drifted gently from the stone chimney of the weathered farmhouse. Samuel opened the front door and stepped aside. "It isn't much," he said quietly, "but it's warm." Clara crossed the threshold cautiously. The room smelled of fresh bread, burning firewood, and polished pine. Every piece of furniture showed years of careful use, though everything remained clean and neatly arranged. The warmth surprised her almost as much as Samuel's kindness. She had expected the lonely ranch to feel cold and neglected, yet every corner reflected quiet discipline. Books rested neatly upon a shelf, boots stood beside the fireplace, and a kettle simmered gently over glowing embers. Samuel placed her suitcase beside the staircase without asking unnecessary questions. "You must be exhausted," he said. "There's hot coffee on the stove and supper won't take long." His calm voice carried no disappointment, making Clara wonder whether he truly understood how serious the mistake actually was. She finally gathered enough courage to explain everything. At the rail station, another young woman had also been traveling west to meet a rancher. Confusion during the transfer between trains and stagecoaches had switched their destinations. By the time Clara realized the error, the journey was already too far advanced. "I never meant to deceive anyone," Clara said softly, twisting her gloves between trembling fingers. "I thought someone would notice before we reached this place." She lowered her eyes, ashamed of the misunderstanding. Samuel listened patiently, interrupting neither her explanation nor her growing anxiety. When she finished speaking, silence settled between them. Clara braced herself for the decision she believed was finally coming. Instead, Samuel poured 2 cups of coffee and slid one gently across the table. "Mistakes happen," he said. "No sense making them harder than they already are." Those simple words eased a burden she had carried throughout the journey. For the first time in several days, Clara allowed herself to breathe without fear. She wrapped both hands around the warm cup, grateful for kindness that expected nothing in return and offered no hidden conditions. During supper, they spoke carefully, like strangers crossing an uncertain bridge. Samuel shared stories about repairing fences after spring floods and raising horses through harsh winters. Clara described growing up in a crowded eastern town where buildings stood closer together than trees and neighbors rarely knew one another. Their conversation flowed naturally despite the unusual circumstances. Samuel discovered Clara possessed a quiet sense of humor that appeared unexpectedly between serious moments. She laughed softly when he admitted his biscuits usually frightened more people than the storms outside, and even he found himself smiling without effort. After the meal, Samuel carried a lantern upstairs and opened the door to the small guest room. Fresh blankets covered the bed, while a single window overlooked the moonlit pasture. "You may stay here until the next stagecoach arrives," he said. "You'll be completely safe under this roof." Clara looked around the modest room with grateful eyes. She had spent the entire journey fearing strangers and uncertain roads, yet somehow she had arrived at the home of a man whose greatest strength seemed to be quiet decency. Such kindness felt almost unbelievable on the frontier. Before retiring for the night, Samuel stepped onto the porch alone. The stars filled the vast Montana sky, brighter than he could ever remember. Deep inside his coat remained Eleanor's photograph, untouched since Clara's arrival. He removed it briefly, studying the unfamiliar face beneath the lantern's glow. He folded the photograph once more and slipped it back into his pocket. Somewhere beyond the distant hills, the woman from his letters might already be discovering the same mistake from the opposite direction. Yet Samuel could not ignore the strange peace that had quietly entered his lonely home. Inside, Clara sat beside the small bedroom window, watching the moonlight spread across endless fields. She whispered a prayer that tomorrow would somehow untangle the confusion surrounding both their lives. Neither of them realized that destiny had already begun writing a story neither had ever expected to live.